The Zanari high mind did not fear Earth. They had studied every species in the galaxy, measured their strengths, mapped their weaknesses. Every weapon, fleet, command structure, nothing escaped their logic. The Zanari were not warriors. They were something worse. Perfect planners, in Earth, manageable. The report echoed through the thought web of the Zanari collective. Category for war potential: strong biology, moderate technology, internal conflict patterns high, predictability rating 91%. Conclusion: contains no existential threat. From orbit, Earth looked quiet. Blue oceans, cloud-wrapped continents, faint heat blooms from their cities, peaceful, or perhaps asleep. On board the prime analyzer ship VORAX-9 over the blue-white curve of Earth, the Zanari analyzer team floated inside a silent, cold chamber, their minds connected through neural threads, wrapped into a single network. They didn't speak like humans. They pulsed data fast, sharp, exact. One of them, a logic handler named Vor, pushed a final scan across the holographic table. Final result: 2.9 billion usable human units, 1.1 billion semi-hostile. Estimated suppression time: 36 Earth days. The prime analyst Zyrek the Ninth thought, clicked with approval. Acceptable. Begin Phase 1. Activate infiltration drones. Suppress global communication nets. No weapons. Until confirmation. Another Zanari shifted. There is one anomaly. Zyrek tilted its head. Anomaly? Yes, a line of data from Earth's deep storage archives, buried in pre-satellite records. No source, no authorship. Just a designation, resonant factor, inconclusive. The chamber dimmed for a moment. Zyrek considered. Is it a weapon? No, no evidence of that. Possibly psychological. Then dismiss it. Continue. Earth will submit. But even as the drone teams were sent out, even as the satellite blackouts began, something shifted. Deep in Earth's crust, sensors pinged. Not active, not loud. Just waiting in a mountain bunker, Colorado Earth Major Annika Rose stared at the last message on her underground terminal. It had no source, no encryption. It wasn't from the president, not from the UN command. Just one sentence: they've started. Scanning resonance layers. Get to Vault 9. Activate the sleeper. She froze. Vault 9 wasn't on any human map, but she remembered the name from a ghost story told in Special Forces training. A story no one believed, about a soldier who wasn't born but built, a soldier who was too dangerous to wake, even for Earth. God help us, she whispered. Then she turned to her comms team. Patch me to Subleville Delta. We're activating project variable. In orbit, the first mistake as the first infiltration drones dropped into the ionosphere. Zanari control nodes began shutting down one by one. Error Vor hissed through the thought web. They are not jamming us. They're absorbing our signals. Impossible, Zyrek responded. Human tech is decades behind. Then explained the data loss. We're blind on South America. Europe just dropped offline. Entire zones. Returning, nothing. Zyrek's thoughts buzzed with alarm. Earth wasn't attacking.
Oh, missiles.
No missiles, no lasers, but the world itself was beginning to bend their sensors, like it was watching them back. In the SEOs of Cape Town, Zanari scouts landed with ease. Human civilians looked up in confusion, but didn't run. No resistance, no soldiers, no guns. One scout's leak, insect-like, walked through a market. It scanned human faces, cataloging. It sent back info. Local aggression, 0%. Fear level, minimal. Submission probability, 98%. It turned to leave. Then someone whispered in its direction, a child, maybe 7 years old. Pale eyes glowing. Faintly, you think we don't know you're here? She said softly. The scout froze. She shouldn't have known its presence. Then it looked closer and saw her holding a small round device. No buttons, No screen. Just humming. Resonating before the scout could transmit a warning. Its body stiffened. A high-pitched tone echoed across its circuits. Its processors burned out in silence, and Earth marked its first kill. Zanari. Panic Begins Erect stared at the numbers. Projected suppression time increased from 36 to 87. Earth days. More drones were failing. Scout ships losing altitude. What was going wrong? Status on human military response? Zyrek asked. Vor answered flatly. None. No launches. No strikes. No global defense. It's like they're waiting. Inside Vault 9, the door was 4 feet thick, sealed with plasma locks. Major Rowe's face was pale as she stepped inside the ice-lined chamber. A human body floated in green stasis. Fluid. Male, mid-30s. No scars. But his vitals showed something strange. Brain activity, above known limits. Heart rate unmeasurable. DNA. Tagged adaptive class. Unknown. Beside him, the words KAELOX. Do not wake without global consent, Rowe. Pressed her hand to the activation panel. I'm sorry, she whispered. Humanity needs what they couldn't measure. Back in orbit, the first realization, the Zanari high mind pulsed with fear. Update threat level. Verse thought came slowly. Category 7. Unknown tech source. Adaptive signal. Some. Pattern of organized planetary response. But their fleets are still grounded, Zyrek argued. And yet we are losing ships. They had seen Earth strength on record. Tanks, nukes, plasma jets. This wasn't. That this was something else. Something beneath the data. Something that made logic bend. Zyrek's thought flickered. Is this the resonant factor? No one answered because suddenly across every sensor, Earth sang. A sound humans couldn't hear, but the Zanari could. A tone not made by machines. A pattern not found in any weapon database. Something humanity had forgotten how to use until now. Final scene. Earth's response begins. Kale opened his eyes. Not with a gasp, but with silence. The kind of silence found only at the start of storms. He looked at Rowe. They've started, she said. Kale stood. His body glowed faintly. No, he replied. They've miscalculated. The Zanari fleet had watched Earth from orbit for 5 days. There had been no missiles, no fleet rising from the oceans, no leaders broadcasting threats. It all looked calm to calm. On board the prime analyzer ship, Vorax 9, Zyrek the Ninth thought. Floated in silence, it processed the reports again and again. All logic still said Earth could be contained, and yet something was wrong. Drones had vanished. Signal towers across the planet were dropping offline. Sensors came back empty in key cities. It was like the planet had stopped showing up on their maps. VORR, the data analyst, reached out through the thought web. We are not reading human resistance. We are reading nothing, Zyrek replied. That should be good. No, it is not. Verse pulses grew sharp. It's as if Earth has fallen silent. But it is not surrender. The ship's lower decks shook slightly. At first, they thought it was just turbulence from Earth's upper atmosphere. But then it happened again. A wave. A sound wave. Deep, low, and vibrating through every Zanari hull. And it wasn't coming from Earth. It was coming from the sky. From the sky itself. Kale moved through the underground tunnel. At a steady pace, Major Annika Rowe walked beside him, trying not to ask questions. He wasn't like the others. He didn't blink much, didn't need to ask where things were. Walked like he had been through these halls 100 times before, even though he had just woken up yesterday. How do you remember this place? Rowe asked, finally breaking the silence. Kale didn't look at her, because I've seen it before, in someone else's memories. She didn't ask what that meant. Above them, the first tremor reached the mountains. Lights flickered. Old dust. Shook from the ceiling, a voice on Rowe's comes crackled through. Ma'am, something's happening in orbit. Our sky sensors are showing. It's hard to explain. The air isn't behaving normally. Something is bending the light, not cloaking, warping. Kale stopped walking. It's begun, he said. Outside Earth's atmosphere. 3 Zanari warships powered up their kinetic drills, preparing to strike. Key energy centers. The Zanari believed in clean hits, no planetary destruction, just control and silence. Their ships lowered into position above the Atlantic. Then, just as the first ship crossed through the mesosphere, it froze mid-air. No explosion, no missile. Just stopped, all power drained. The Zanari crew inside screamed through the mind web. Their thoughts were cutting off, one by one. Ship number 2 followed, its engines flickering before vanishing from all readings. Not destroyed. Gone. The last ship tried to retreat, but the sky above Earth shimmered, just slightly, and let out a pulse. Not light, not fire sound. A long, ancient tone echoed across the clouds, vibrating every Zanari ship's hull. Even those far from Earth, the sound wasn't from a weapon. It was a voice, a human voice, stretched and embedded in frequency so deep, the Zanari ships couldn't isolate it. Every circuit became unstable. Every sensor scrambled. Zyrek shouted across the ship's core link. Trace that frequency. Trace it now. We can't. Vor screamed back. It's not targeting our systems. It's targeting us. The VOR AX-9 began to spin slightly in orbit, shields flickering inside the vessel. Something else happened, something no machine could stop. The crew began to feel. Zanari did not feel emotion like humans. Their minds were part machine, part biological. Cold and exact, but now he felt fear. Real, illogical, human-style fear. Because the voice carried something deeper than words. It carried memory. Old human pain, grief, rage, hope. It was a wave of feeling not designed to kill, not to shake them, to remind them what humanity was willing to fight for and what it had buried for.
At moments.
Just like this, on Earth's surface. In a small town in Siberia, an old man stood in a barn. He hadn't spoken in 20 years, not since the war. But now he looked up at the black sky, eyes wide. He whispered, "They're singing it again." The farmer beside him looked confused. "What do you mean?" The old man turned slowly. "The Earth song. I heard it once. During the breach in '74, they shut it down back then. But now?" the younger man asked. "Now," the old man said, "they've let it play." Kale reached the underground command room. Lights were already dim. Systems are aboned. "Major." Rowe turned to him. "What is that signal? It's causing the disruption in orbit?" Kale placed his hand on the central console. His palm pulsed softly. "It's not disruption, it's alignment. The sky is not just weather. Earth has layers. Sounds hidden in the magnetic field. Motions written into our old machines. I didn't create the signal, just remembered how to let it out." Rowe stared. "That voice is yours." Kale looked at her. "No," he said. "It's everyone's." "Zanari." Command tried to fire back. Plasma beams roared from their backup fleet, but the beams never reached the surface. They bent, twisted, and vanished, absorbed by something in the atmosphere. Not shields. Something older. Recall the ships. Zyrek screamed into the web, "Shut it down, abort the operation." But it was too late. Across the galaxy, other civilizations, listening in to the Zanari conquest channels, began picking up the signal. Weak at first, then stronger. A human voice, broken into patterns. A code that wasn't code. Just one repeating message: "You calculated our strength, but you never measured our soul." Inside the Vorax 9, lights failed. The crew fell silent. No thoughts moved in the web. Zyrek was the last to remain, alone, watching. Earth spins slowly below, waiting for the next part to begin. The Zanari fleet was built for control. Their technology was generations ahead of most species. Their shields could block star-level radiation, nullify gravity beams, even withstand point-blank plasma bursts. But none of it worked now. A sound. had entered their systems low, strange, and human. They didn't know where it came from. It wasn't fired, it wasn't broadcast, it just appeared. A pulse that passed through their ship hulls like they were paper. It didn't damage the ship, it damaged something else. The minds inside, Zyrek the Ninth thought could feel his core. Process lagging. His internal logic was breaking down. Patterns were skipping. His memory coils buzzed with noise. Data that had once felt clear enemy strength, atmosphere structure, power grid locations was now blurred. He tried to speak. Through the thought-web, nothing came back. The Vorax 9 was silent. Every Zanari on board was still alive. But they were frozen, eyes wide, minds locked in some invisible grip, as if their thoughts were being pulled apart and rewritten. Zyrek wasn't afraid of weapons. He was afraid of what this signal was doing to them. Back on Earth, Kale stood. In front of the old cum tower in the Siberian outpost, the snow drifted gently around him. The tower wasn't active. It hadn't transmitted anything in over 30 years, but now it was glowing. Not with power, but with memory. Kale placed his hand on one of the frozen support beams. His breath was calm. Even though his body trembled from the cold, he didn't need machines. He didn't need satellites. He only needed to remember. The human signal wasn't made in one place. It lived in the earth itself. It's hidden inside mountains. Water, ice, and bones. And now it had reached orbit, inside the Zanari fleet. Vor the logic handler finally moved. His eyes snapped open, blinking for the first time in hours. He gasped. Something entered me. Zyrek turned slowly. You were functional? Vor didn't answer at first. He was shaking. I heard my own thoughts speaking in a voice I didn't recognize. But it felt familiar. It felt like grief. Human grief, Zyrek hissed. That's impossible. Human emotions cannot imprint on us. We're protected. Trained? No, Vor said. Not from this. This wasn't an attack. It was a memory. Someone else's pain. One of the bridge lights blinked red. A proximity alert. They both turned. One of Earth's old satellites had come online. It wasn't transmitting. It wasn't moving fast. It just hovered in their path, glowing with the same strange pulse that had damaged the fleet. Zyrek raised the ship's shields. Nothing happened. He tried again. Still nothing. Activate backup energy fields, he screamed. Vor tapped controls with shaking hands. The fields aren't failing. They're ignoring our commands. The satellite isn't jamming us. It's inside us. The satellite drifted closer. Just an old metal box with broken panels and a cracked lens. But its signal was no longer weak. Now, it roared. Kale opened his eyes back on Earth. The tower lights had changed from blue to deep orange. Major rose. Voice buzzed in his ear. We're getting reports from across Asia, Africa, and North America. Underground facilities are waking up. Things we thought were shut down. He nodded. They were never shut down. Just waiting. Ro asked. Waiting. For what? Kale's face was calm. For a signal that couldn't be sent? Only felt. The Zanari tried to move their fleet away from Earth. Ships turned. Engines powered up. But their navigation systems showed false coordinates. They thought they were rising, but they were dropping. They weren't in orbit anymore. They were falling. Zyrek screamed into the web, hoping another ship would hear him, but the signal kept growing louder. Not in volume, but in weight. It was heavy, full of meaning, full of loss. Zyrek remembered something from the Earth study files. A word used often in ancient human wars, a feeling their species couldn't measure or understand. Sorrow? That single quotes. What this signal was made of, not anger, not rage, but sorrow, too deep to forget, and it was reaching into them. You calculated our weapons, Gale said aloud, standing on the frozen mountain. You measured our technology? You even read our history. But you didn't measure this. He placed his hand on the final part of the tower. You didn't measure the grief we buried. The last Zanari warship spun slowly above the Pacific. All weapons offline. all minds stunned. Inside the bridge, Vor began to cry, but his species didn't know how to cry. It wasn't built into them. And yet tears streamed from his eyes. Whispered to no one, this is what they've hidden. This is the unmeasurable. Then the signal changed. It didn't end. It shifted from sorrow to silence. But a silence that was waiting, holding its breath. And Xerek finally understood this. Wasn't Earth's weapon. It was the warning. Snow drifted over the ruins of the old bunker, deep underground. Behind doors that hadn't opened in decades, a man slowly stepped out of the stasis chamber. His skin was pale. His eyes glowed faintly in the dark. He moved like someone half awake, but his heart was calm. To calm. Major Annika Rose stood a few meters back, holding a pulse rifle. She wasn't sure if it would do anything, especially against him. The figure turned toward her. He didn't speak. Rose swallowed hard. Kale? He nodded once. How long was I out? 37 years. He tilted his head, not surprised. That long? Ro lowered the rifle. The Zanari are here. They started their invasion, but they didn't use bombs or fire. They watched. Scanned. Measured everything about us. Kale looked past her, toward a screen showing Earth's orbit. And they said we were manageable. Kale smiled. But it wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind of smile people gave when they already knew the outcome. Someone who had seen the same pattern repeat too many times. Rose stepped forward. I read your file. I know what they called you. A prototype. A risk. They said your mind changed too fast. That you learned too quickly? Kale turned back to her. I didn't understand what they made. I wasn't designed to fight one war. I was built to remember all of them. The room went quiet. Above them, Zanari orbit ships continued to drift. They were no longer moving in formation. Their communications were broken. Their leaders couldn't think straight. Something inside them had cracked. Not their metal, not their circuits. Something deeper. Kale stepped into the command circle. A soft light scanned his body. Old systems that had slept for years began to hum. The lights glowed white, then blue, then red. The base was unlocking. What are you doing? Ro asked. Kale didn't look at her, waking up the others. Ro froze. Others? There were 12 of us. Only 3 survived the collapse. I was the only one placed in deep freeze. The others were hidden differently. Where? Kale reached toward the console. They're already listening. In the old deserts of Arizona, under what used to be a power station, an alarm blinked. Then another. Stasis pod hummed to life. In the Arctic, beneath a glacier, a steel eye opened in the dark. In orbit, Zanari sensors picked up strange, pulses-coded messages, traveling through magnetic fields, not through wires or light. Ancient. Tech. Pre-machine tech. They didn't know how to stop it. They didn't even know how to read it, Xerek. Still aboard the VOR AX-9, tried to form a command order. His thoughts were slow, weighed down by the signal. Vor was silent beside him, staring at the walls. Xerek finally spoke. We strike. No, Vor whispered. We can't even aim. Then retreat, I don't think we can. Kale watched the orbital feed. Do they know what's coming? Ro asked him. No, he said. They studied our numbers, our ships, our firepower. But they didn't measure what couldn't be seen. Ro asked. What is that? Kale looked at her memory, motion, adaptation. It's not something you can scan. It's something you live through. She stared at him, and you. What are you? Kale closed his eyes. I'm the result of every war Earth ever lost, every mistake, every broken peace treaty, every betrayal. I'm not here to lead. I'm here to remind them. Remind who? He opened his eyes. Everyone. In the Pacific, the ocean moved unnaturally. Something large was rising, no engines, no signal. It's just massive size and quiet motion. Zanari. Scouts tried to identify it. They failed, because what rose wasn't a ship. It was something built long ago, something Earth had hidden beneath the sea. Floor. A structure designed not to launch weapons, but to wake them. The sea opened, and something ancient stepped out. Zanari command already cracking under pressure. Finally snapped, they sent a desperate message across their empire. Earth contains non-recorded superstructures. Current estimates invalid. Operation compromised. As Irek tried to recompile the war calculator, it refused. The Earth variable had changed too many times, too fast, too unpredictable. The calculator didn't break. It shut itself down. Kale stood at the edge of the platform now. The mountain winds howled around him. Rose stood beside him, still silent. "You think we'll win?" she asked. Kale didn't answer at first. "We don't need to win," he said. "Finally, we just need them to understand why they never should have come." And far above, in orbit, the first Zanari ship cracked open without being touched. Zanari engineers were trained for everything: bio-attacks, code viruses, gravity shifts, but nothing had prepared them for what just happened. The lead warship above. Earth had broken open, not from a weapon, not from impact, but from the inside. The hull had twisted, as if reacting to pressure no one could measure. The metal didn't explode. It peeled apart slowly, silently, and released a thick cloud of white mist. Sensors couldn't scan it. Zanari watchers could only stare as the mist drifted toward another ship and made contact. That ship shut down to no flames. No alarms. Just silence. On Earth, Kale stepped into the old neural archive chamber beneath the Siberian outpost. Cold air hit his face. The walls here were different, lined with gray crystal and black stone instead of wires or screens. The lights hummed. Without electricity, Major Rowe followed slowly, uneasy. "What is this place?" she asked. Kale looked around. The forge. "This is where they made me, where they made the others." Rowe stared at the walls. Symbols were etched in long spirals, old Earth languages mixed with something else, something not human. You weren't just built by humans, she realized. Kale nodded. Not completely. Earth borrowed things. Pieces from species that came before. Tech left behind. Things the Council of Species banned. But Earth kept them in secret. Rowe looked at him. "And you were the result?" "No," Kale said. "I was just the first one that survived." Outside. The forge, deep in an underground vault near the African Rift. Another chamber opened. Inside it stood a tall figure female, armor-like skin, glowing lines across her arms. She stepped out, eyes blazing. Her name hadn't been spoken in decades. But she remembered it. Raya. She looked up. Even though the vault was sealed, she could feel the signal in the sky. It was time, the Zanari detected. New energy blooms across Earth's crust, but the patterns didn't match anything in their database. They weren't reactor spikes. They weren't geothermal. They were something older. VORR tried to calculate. He failed. "There is no origin point," said Zirek, leaned closer to the data feed. "What does that mean?" Ver's voice trembled. "It means this signal isn't being sent. It's being shared." Zirek froze. "A shared signal?" "Yes," Vor whispered. "The signal is passing through humans, not wires, not devices. People." In the slums of Jakarta, a boy sat on a rooftop and began humming. A tune he didn't know, but somehow remembered. His neighbors heard it and joined. The sound spread across cities, wordless, ancient, powerful. The Zanari war network buckled. Again, not because of fire, but because their minds. Cold and logical, could not stand against a song of memory. It wasn't just emotion, it was identity, and the Zanari had none. Kale walked deeper into the forge. He stood before the final chamber. The lights above it pulsed red dot. Rowe spoke softly. "You don't have to do this." Kale looked back at her. "Yes, I do. Wasn't made to lead a resistance. I was made to open this door. Yeah, the others will do the rest." He placed his hand on the final panel. The forge rumbled. Earth's magnetic field shifted for a second, and deep below the ocean floor, the prototype they thought was dead opened its eyes. It didn't have a name. It's just a designation .HX-9. It was never meant to leave the ocean. It had grown there, fed by pressure, sound, and silence. Boo. It wasn't just a human creation, it was Earth's. And now it was awake. The creature didn't scream, it didn't roar, it just moved. Upward as it rose, Zanari orbital sensors shorted out. The creature wasn't made of tech, it was made of sound and instinct, of memory and forgotten pain. The kind that lived deep inside Earth and had no language. The kind that waited for invaders. Kale stepped away from the console. "It's done," he said. Ro looked at him. "What now?" He looked at the sky. They looked at Earth, at our files, our machines. They thought they saw everything. "And they missed the most dangerous part," Ro said quietly. Kale nodded. "They missed what we buried." Zyrek screamed orders into the broken thought web. "Bring the fleet into formation." But it was useless. His crew couldn't respond. Their minds were too clouded. Their systems didn't trust their inputs anymore. Every button felt heavier. Every command seemed like it came from a dream. One final alert flashed across. Zanari flagship, unknown entity locked. Proximity, 0.2 astronomical units. Zyrek turned just in time to see it. HX-9 had reached low orbit. Its body looked like steel, but it wasn't. It looked like fire, but it wasn't. It shimmered between shapes. It was not a ship. It was a warning. The warning Earth never spoke aloud. The warning the Zanari never measured. It looked at them, and every Zanari on board felt the same thing. They were being watched by something older than fear. The Zanari homeworld was light years away from Earth, deep inside the iron spiral. It was protected by the Empire's strongest fleet, shielded by pulse fields, cloaked in quantum fog. No one had ever reached it without permission, until now. In the middle of the capital's sky, every star blinked out. Just for a second. Then came the signal. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't even a message. It was a low, soft pulse like a deep breath owing through the entire system. Cities shut down. Air traffic stopped. Every single AI began to misread its core orders, and at the center of the spiral, the heart of the Empire went dark. It started with a hum, then a flicker, then silence. Zyrek didn't believe it at first. He thought it was sensor interference. Earth couldn't reach the core. It's not without ships. Not without fleets, but it wasn't a fleet that arrived. It was just one ship. A ship that didn't appear on any scanner. A ship with no ID, no lights, and no weapons. Heat signature. And it moved like it already knew the path. The ship didn't jump through space like normal Zanari craft. It didn't follow the lanes. It folded in and out of places that shouldn't exist. The Zanari called those paths impossible space. Earth called them something else. Instinct routes. Kale stood in silence, watching from the high mountain deck. A cold wind blew through his jacket, but he didn't move. Major Rose stepped beside him. Her face was pale. "Our scouts just confirmed it," she said. "HX-9 is gone." "Gone where?" we asked. She hesitated. 30 seconds ago. And it's already in the iron spiral. Kale nodded slowly. "Good." Ro looked confused. "That's not possible." "The spiral is 20,000 light years away. It's not impossible," Kale said. "It's just unmeasured." Him? That ship? Was it built by Earth? Kale looked up at the stars. "No," he said. "It was born." HX-9 wasn't a machine. Not fully. It had grown under the ocean, fed by old frequencies, molded by gravity and pressure. It didn't carry missiles. It carried memory. It's a kind of memory that could echo through space and rewrite the meaning. Of fear, and now it had arrived at the doorstep of the Zanari's highest command center. The guards never saw it coming. Their sensors still showed clear skies, but the air turned heavy. The stars vanished. And then they felt watched. The Zanari Prime Core was buried beneath 3 miles of reinforced steel and energy mesh. But HX-9 didn't break through. It simply passed through it. Matter bent around its form. Walls turned soft. Floors forgot what they were made of. Every object near it reacted like it remembered pain. The creature walked calmly into the center and stood. Every Zanari leader stopped speaking. Their minds tried to calculate what it was. No answer came. Then, for the first time in recorded Zanari history, the central processor of their empire wrote a message with no logic, just for words. The human ship watches. And then the entire system died. Power grids failed. Emergency backups vanished. The spiral's light dimmed. Zyrek watched from his damaged ship near Earth. The core signal went offline. The Empire's command net went silent. The feed showed nothing but static. Then a final pulse reached his screen, a simple frequency. Like a heartbeat, he knew that beat now. He had felt it in the silence. He had felt it in the fear. It was Earth's rhythm. Back on the mountain, Kale took a slow breath. Rose's voice was tight. We just disabled their capital, with one ship. Kale didn't answer at first. We didn't disable it, he said finally. We reminded them what they forgot. She shook her head. I don't understand. He looked at her, eyes glowing faintly. Their empire was built on logic, calculation. They believed that everything could be predicted, controlled, measured, and it can't. Kale stepped forward. No, he said, because the human mind can't be predicted. Our pain, our hope, our fear, our songs, our silence, our rage, these are not stats, these are storms. We just released one. Kale nodded once. HX-9 hovered above the iron spiral. Unmoving now, it had not attacked, but the message was clear. Earth didn't need to fire. The ship had already won, across the galaxy. The Zanari Empire had only one backup plan left. They called them the architects. Ancient beings, built long ago when the Zanari still believed in things they couldn't explain. Each one stood the size of a city, buried deep under distant moons or forgotten temples. They weren't alive, but they weren't machines either. They were created for one purpose only, to reset any battlefield the Empire couldn't win. Zyrek, barely functioning aboard his darkened ship, sent the order, activate the architects. It had never been done in the last 1,000 cycles. Even Vor, the second in command, whispered through the flickering mind web. If we use them, there's no going back. Zyrek didn't answer, because he knew there was no going back. On a dead moon near the edge of the Orion Rift, something massive opened its eyes for the first time in centuries. The surface cracked as a metallic giant rose from the dirt, taller than mountains. Its limbs were carved with ancient code, long forgotten even by the Zanari. Its head turned toward Earth. A second one activated under the ice crust of a gas giant, then a third. From the dark sea of a rogue world, 3 in total, the architects moved toward Earth, not through hyperspace, but through the folds cutting holes. In reality itself, Kale felt them coming before any scanner picked them up. He was standing in the same mountain where he'd awakened days ago, but now the snow had melted around him. The Earth was hot not from heat, but from memory. Major Rowe joined him, out of breath, new movement. 3 signals. Bigger than anything we've seen there? They're coming here. Kale didn't blink. They're not just machines. What are they? She asked. Kale looked at the clouds, their fear. On the outer edge of Earth's orbit, HX-9 paused. The air around it shimmered, its shape blurred. Something old stirred in its core. It had no mouth, but it began to sing, the same signal from before. The deep, vibrating tone that broke Zanari ships and reached across space. But now the pitch was different. It wasn't just memory now. It was a call from Earth's deep oceans. Something answered. A second signal, stronger, faster. From the mountains, a third. Rose stared at the readings. It's not just HX-9. We have others. Kale nodded slowly. Earth has more than one memory. The Zanari architects reached Earth's orbit. The sky cracked open, not from fire, but from sound. The architects didn't fire. They simply existed. Their presence bent the laws around them. Satellites spun out of control. Clouds shifted direction. Oceans trembled. Then the first architect reached down. It touched Earth's upper atmosphere. With one giant hand, Kale whispered. Now we'll see if they can measure the soul. The sky split again, this time from below. Earth's surface opened, and something came out. It wasn't made of metal. It wasn't built in any lab. It was Earth's. Answer, not a ship, not a person, a being made of all the pain, all the love, all the silence of humanity's past. A shape made from grief, wrapped in hope. It's powered by loss. It struck the architect's hand. The metal groaned and cracked. On the Zanari homeworld, panic returned. Communications failed again. The architects were supposed to be perfect, untouchable, immortal. But now, one of them was falling. Voarr screamed into the thought web. We've woken the old things, the earthborn. Zarek said nothing. Kale watched the battle from the mountain. He didn't speak, he didn't cheer, because he knew this wasn't a victory yet. The architects were not built to win battles. They were built to erase the idea of resistance. The second architect moved faster now. It's pulling energy from nearby moons. Reshaping its arms into blades of white fire, it struck. Earth's answer caught the blade with one glowing hand. It didn't break. Instead, it absorbed the fire and glowed brighter. Then the Earth being looked up not at the architects, but at the stars, as if asking a question or giving a warning. Kale's voice was barely above a whisper. But they should never have come here. The stars had never gone quiet like this. Not even during the Black Hole Wars. Not even when the Screamers, the Planet 12, shattered 3 moons in a day. But now, across every edge of the Zanari Empire, silence had fallen. Ships that had once flown in perfect formations floated like broken leaves. Entire fleets refused to fire, not because of damage, but because the beings inside them couldn't make decisions anymore. Not after seeing Earth's response. The third architect reached Earth. The last one, the strongest, the oldest. It stood. Over 200 kilometers tall, made of crystal nerves and dark alloy bones. Its body shifted like liquid metal. Its voice was not a roar, but a whisper that stretched across thousands of minds at once. Zarek heard it from his failing ship. Vor collapsed beside him, unable to think. His mind had snapped hours ago. The whisper repeated a single question. Why does Earth resist? It echoed through all Zanari frequencies. Comes through internal thoughts. Even through Shield's Kale. Stood at the base of the forge once more, watching the clouds burn silver. Around him, humanity was no longer hiding. Every bunker was lit. Every secret base had opened. Pilots sat in strange hybrid ships half-machine. Half-Marie crafted in ancient chambers, Earth, never admitted to having major. Ro watched as more earthborn shapes rose from deserts, oceans, even deep orbit. These weren't on any map. She whispered. They weren't meant to be, Kale replied. She turned to him. How many do we have? He looked at her enough. The earthborn being that had cracked the first architect now floated silently in space, its glowing arms wide. It didn't chase. It didn't strike. It just watched, waiting. Measuring the last move, the third architect didn't hesitate. It raised both arms. The sky darkened across 3 continents. Kale closed his eyes. The architect released its final weapon, a beam of energy that moved slower than light. Not because it was weak, but because it was heavy. It wasn't made of fire. It was made of memory erasure. Zanari technology had never understood grief, or love, or art. So instead, they built something that could destroy those things. The beam wasn't meant to kill bodies. It was meant to kill meanings. Everything it touched would forget itself. It reached Earth's upper sky. Then something happened. Every human on the planet awake, sleeping, laughing, crying, felt a pressure in their hearts, a pulse, like their soul had just clenched, and then they heard the voice. Not spoken, not broadcast, just felt, do not forget what you are. All across Earth, people stood still. Old men dropped their canes and saluted the sky. Children looked up and smiled without knowing why. Pilots wept in silence. Historians dropped their pens, and deep within the forge, Kale opened his eyes. There. Ready? He said. Ro turned, confused. Who? He didn't answer. Because above them, Earth itself answered. From space, the planet pulsed, not with light, not with weapons, with story, every memory. Every war, every poem, every song, every cry, every birth, every loss, every win. Every single story humanity had ever lived through rose up. It wrapped around the incoming beam, not to block it to absorb it, because the power of story is stronger than erasure. The beam collapsed into light, turning into a silent rain. It fell across Earth like a soft wind. People breathed it in and remembered more than before. The architect hesitated. It had failed for the first time in eons. It didn't know what to do. HX9 moved then, not with speed, but with purpose. It drifted toward the architect, not to destroy it, but to speak. Because HX-9 was not a weapon. It was the voice of everything Earth had once buried, and now Earth had given it permission to speak. The architect tried to resist, but it couldn't, because Earth's voice wasn't a sound. It was a truth, it said. You studied what we had. You calculated what we lost. You guessed what we feared. But you never measured what we became. The architect's form shook. A crack ran down its chest. Light poured out. But it wasn't dying. It was breaking open, and from inside, something emerged, not a weapon, not another machine, but a single memory. The architect had stolen it. Long ago, during the first contact mission, it was a memory of a mother holding her child in the rain, singing to calm him. Nothing strategic. Nothing useful. But now, that memory returned, and the architect paused. It didn't fall. It knelt. Zyrek watched it all unfold. He had no words. His race had ruled for thousands of years. Out through calculation. Through cold power, but they had never once considered something like this. Something immeasurable, he whispered.
Oh.
We never stood a chance. And far away, across the galaxy, thousands of watching species saw what Earth had done. They saw the ships, the beings, the sky tearing open not from death, but from truth, and for the first time in galactic history, Earth wasn't feared for its weapons. It was respected for something much worse. It's unmeasurable. Will Kalel stood on the edge of the mountain. The wind blew again, soft this time. Ro stood beside him. Is it over? She asked. Kale nodded slowly. For now, but they'll come back someday, won't they? Kale looked to the stars. Let them.